Hello everyone and welcome to a war selection video. This is going to be my first war selection video in my new series called Mastering the Art of War Selection, where I share all my tips and tricks on how to become better at the game and climb the ladder. If you don't know who I am, my name is Voodoo and I've been playing war selection for quite some time now. Mostly I play team game and 2v2. I held the number one spot on the 2v2 leaderboard with my friend Accelerate for majority of season 14, but finished third place, I think, just in the very end of it. Um, I've also done a fair bit of 1v1. I played against some really good high-ranked players in 1v1, so I do have some knowledge in that area as well that I like to share with all of you 1 versus 1 players out there. I'm also doing a giveaway on a free country code, and all you have to do to enter is like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment on the video to have a chance to win. The winner will be announced approximately 1 month after release of this video, so until then you have a chance to enter the giveaway. More information about the giveaway will be in the description. Alright, so let's get started. As you might have already figured out by the title, today I'll be doing my version of the country's tier list in war selection based on my opinion about them and how well they do in different scenarios. Like any tier list ever made, I don't assume everyone will agree with me on my picks and order, but this is just out of my perspective and how the game meta is right now. If you feel like I left something out super important or missed anything, just please leave a comment below. Alright, so starting off, we got Great Britain. Uh, Great Britain, probably one of the best countries in the game. They got really good infantry, with the LMGs cheap, they're fast to make, and just a really strong unit for IR1. Their tanks are solid. Their naval force with the Dreadnought, really strong, one of the strongest ships in the game. Aerial is okay. They obviously have the Holy Fox, but I don't think the Holy Fox is really worth it for 15 population. But overall, really strong all around. Sea forts, really good. You could go this on an island map and still do very well. Sea forts are really strong, to be honest. Yeah, the Dreadnought, really strong with the naval. Anti-tank rifle, also really strong in the IR2, is a great counter for pretty much anyone who tries to go tanks. LMG is really strong for anyone who tries to go with a lot of infantry. So they have a lot of answers for a lot of problems. I do think Great Britain belongs all the way in the solo carry. It's such a strong country. And it's very easy to play as well. It's probably one of the easiest countries. I think the play style is very Western Europe, with building towers, building walls, more of a defensive kind of play rather than a lot of like siege weapons and all that. But Great Britain really is strong solo carry country, I believe. Alright, so on to the next one, and the next one is gonna be China. China is very different from a lot of the other countries. I think China is probably the most unique one. Yeah, China, China is China is China. It's the thing is with China, it either belongs here or here. I think it definitely has solo carry potential, but it's very slow in the beginning. Your IR1 is pretty weak, I'd say. It's probably one of the weaker IR1s. And that probably has to do with the foreign supply center. And that you probably don't have that many militiamen yet, but it's I'd say infinite scaling country, because the more houses you build, obviously the more militia you have, and when you have all the upgrades or researches on the foreign supply center, then it's actually very good. But until then, you'll be a bit weaker. Uh, you do have the soldiers. The basic soldier of China is pretty strong because obviously they have the ability to go up to tanks and blow them up. You have the militia spam, which is really strong against some countries. Some countries can easily counter it, like Russia or Hungary, or there's a few. Um, but I'd say China is support class, just because it's too slow and normally you don't have the time to get all the upgrades on your foreign supply center, or get that many houses that your militia is pretty much unstoppable. But so I'd say support class. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it's more like a support for your team. You provide them with all the front line that they need with your militiamen. Um, Also, you have the mounted guardsmen, of course, which can be really annoying. That you can use to kill workers, or you can even use them for slow siege weapon like big Bertas or howitzers or whatever. But mostly, I'd say they're used for just killing workers, kind of being like spamming them as like an armored car, basically. Just get inside their workers and just be a pain for the enemy. Also, the reason I think they belong in support class and not solo carry is because they have no airfield. They can't make any balloons. They can't make any planes, and they also have basically no naval force at all. Their fishing ships can blow up, which means you can like ram other ships and blow them up, but most ships can just destroy them before they even get close. So I do think they belong in the support class. But all the militiamen paired with the rice farm, which gives a lot of food, makes them such a strong country. Also with the large families, which makes you can have 340 population instead of 250 or 260. But yeah, I think China is support class, but really strong country. Alright, so the next one is going to be abstract country. Everyone's probably, if you reach industrial ones, you probably played abstract. So everyone is kind of familiar with it. It doesn't have any special troops. It's pretty basic, but I'd say abstract is not great, but it's also not bad. You can always go it. You can go West Asia, East Asia, West Europe, East Europe, and you can always go abstract, which I think is really good. It's also very all around. It's very solid. It doesn't really have any weaknesses like China, for example. But it also doesn't have like any super strong heavy troops. So I think it belongs in still very strong. You still have tractors in IR1, which some countries do not have. For example, China doesn't have any tractors at all. And I believe Iran gets them in IR2. Maybe India as well, I'm not sure. But like, yeah, you have the tractors in IR1, which is obviously really good. You have you have light tank, armored car, submachine gunners, all the good troops. So I definitely think abstract belongs here. It's very solid, and if there's one country that you should master first or really get familiar with, it's definitely abstract. Alright, so next up is gonna be Japan. Japan is a very different country from the rest of them. I think it's a very niched country, which means it does sea and air very well compared to others, but its ground forces are not as strong as others. on example, an island map, I think Japan is one of the best. If it was an island map, then it's probably on solo carry. But most of the times, if it's a regular map, I'd say it's either support class, but I'm gonna put it at specific scenarios, just because it is not that often that you get an island map. But when you do, that's when Japan really excels. Because they have the Yamato, they have the Sentuko, which is really strong boats, both of them. And with their aerial, they have the Fugo and uh, the plans that bomb themselves. I don't know what they're called, but it can really provide a lot for your team. The reason why they are not as strong as other countries is their capability of making strong ground forces, I'd say, like Britain, for example. But people say Japan is useless, but I really disagree. Even with no sea at all, Japan can still be good because they can still make a decent sized army. You have the light trench mortars, which is just one population per unit, which means you can get a lot of them and pair them with some machine gunners, the soldiers, and you can actually do a lot of damage, and they can be really strong, really dangerous. It's also one of the countries that require a lot of micro, with all the planes and the Fugos. But yeah, Japan, really good. Just very specific scenarios where it can be really, really strong. So next up is gonna be India. India is probably one of my favorite countries. It is just really fun to play compared to a lot of the other ones, I think. I must say that I do think it belongs in the support class, but it does really well at this. It doesn't quite have the power as some other countries, but as a support class, it's really, really good as a support class. The main reason why it doesn't belong in one of these is because you don't have any tanks at all until IR2, where you get the wheel tank. But the wheel tank is great. The wheel tank is really, really good. You have the large families upgrade, which gives you more population, which is also really, really good. Not a lot of countries have that. Elephant machine gun, really, really strong. Elephant mortar, not something I see a lot of people use. I don't use it a lot either. I do think it needs maybe a buff, because I think it's just simply not that good. But also it's one of your few siege weapons, kind of, as India, so you're kind of forced to use them. But the real reason why I think India is great is the Tiger trucks, the Fury of Durga. It is the most close unit you can find to it is probably the militiamen, but I do think the Tigers are a lot better. You can spam them a lot faster. You keep them on the trucks, so most of the time when you spam your militiamen, it's gonna be from the houses around your base. And if it's a big map, they have obviously a large distance to travel. But the Tigers you can carry on the trucks, so you can just move all the trucks to the enemy that you're attacking and drop all the Tigers, and then go back with your trucks and to keep them safe. And the Tigers, the militiaman, for example, gets they have a hard time versus like LMGs, submachine guns, stuff like that. But the Tigers are just too fast, so most of the time they will survive and get their target and kill them. Also, you have the upgrade for them in IR2, which makes them even stronger. But they're very fast, they deal a decent amount of damage. So I think they're great for a support class. It provides all the frontline your team needs. It's great for killing workers of your enemy or destroying the enemy's frontline. They don't have any building damage, as far as I know, but it's mostly for just killing that front line, getting rid of Turkish snipers, British LMGs. The Tigers are just very, very strong, and I think it's a great support class. So next up is Austria, Hungary. Um, I think it's a pretty slept-on country. It doesn't see as much play as I thought it would, even though it's a very, very strong country. You have the Chava, which is probably one of the best tanks early on. It's super fast, it's great for combat, it's great for killing workers, it's fast, it's mobile. It's kind of like an APC mixed with a light tank. So, and then in the IR2 you get the upgrades for the tanks, makes them really strong. The gas mortar is not something you see a lot. It can be good versus heavy infantry, but you don't see it a lot. And Wonderama requires, I'd say, at least some micro if you want to play them correctly, but you can also just spam them around your base and be kind of safe that way. It's also one of the countries where you can go from both West and East Europe, which is obviously really good. So I do think it belongs here. I don't think it's a solo carry country, but it's a really strong country. Even in IR1, I forgot to mention as well, with India, you can also go from both West Asia and East Asia into India, which is a real benefit. And same goes for Austria, but for Europe. But you have the Chaba, obviously, it's probably their most powerful unit compared with the Wonderama. But great country overall. Not as strong as some of the other countries, but still a very strong country. So next up is gonna be Poland. Poland is a really strong country. It has perhaps the best tanks of all the countries. Not on just pure strength, but by the cost and the speed. The tanket is, in my opinion, one of the best tanks in the game, one of the best units. Both the IR1 version and the IR2 version. So Poland is great. The amphibious tank, if you can pull it off and get on, say, an island map, a bunch of amphibious tanks from your island to the enemy, that can be really strong, but most of the time the enemy ships will see them and kind of just destroy them. But if it works, it works. The Ulan with the IR2 upgrade with the grenade is very, very strong. You can bully your enemy by destroying his buildings, and it's crazy fast. It's very, very strong. Also, you don't have any regular mines, you have the stone mine instead. But pair the stone mines with a dragon's teeth, which only cost stone or wood. You can also make huge walls if you want to, and it won't cost you any metal. But I think Poland is, I'd say it's one of these two. I don't know if it deserves to be all the way up on solo carry, or if it's just down here. I'm gonna put it that's still very strong. I don't think it's as strong as Great Britain or some other countries, but it's definitely up there. It's a very, very, very strong country, very good country. Very good special units, all of them really, really good, except maybe the Saboteur. Yeah, I do think the Saboteur is not great, but everything else about Poland is very solid, very good. Alright, so next up is gonna be Germany. Germany has... I think Germany is simply too expensive. That's the whole thing about Germany. They have some great tanks, some huge artillery. Big Berta is really, really good, but they can easily get countered by some cavalrymen or some fast tanks or even infantry. and as well the Bergs, as well as the tanks. It's all very, very expensive. So I do think they belong in the decent tier. I simply think it's too expensive. Same goes for the flamethrower guys. I don't know how expensive they are, but they're probably pretty expensive. And I do think they can get countered pretty easily. But if you manage to get IR before most people, the flamethrowers, I mean they can be good, but again, if you want to send one of these guys into the enemy base and just kill workers, you can do the same thing with the armored car, which moves a lot faster. I just think there's a lot of better options for Germany instead of going Germany. So yeah, Germany's gonna be a decent list, mostly because all its units is just too expensive. Houses are expensive, units are expensive. It's all just too expensive. Next on the list is gonna be France. I think France is kind of similar to Germany when it comes to how expensive they are. France is also a very expensive country. Their tanks are good. Their tanks are actually quite strong. The FT-17 is probably one of the best tanks in IR1. Also, another good thing about France is they are quite strong in IR1. They're not super dependent on their IR2. But the problem with them is that they are too airplane focused, I think. They have a lot of aerial, which in war selection is not super great. Because the planes need landing, they need airfields for themselves and everything, and planes can't really do that much. Most, if not all, planes can't damage the town hall either. So I think France belongs in decent. I think if it's one country that needs a little bit love from the devs, it's France. I rarely see people go France in my games. It's by far the weakest West Europe country, I'd say. I'd rather go Great Britain all days before France, or even Germany, or Hungary, of course. But yeah, I think France is not great, but it has very good tanks. Tanks are very good, and it has a aerial force that's really strong as well, paired with the airplane carriers. But their infantry is not as strong as others. Up next is Russia, the East Asia big boy. Wow. Russia is all the way up there. Very, very strong country. A lot of strong units. It also, I'd say Russia is a bad counter for a lot of countries. The LMGs gets kind of shredded by the dev site. Same goes with the militia of China. The dev site is really bad news for them. The Russian standard soldier, very good. Gets even stronger in IR2 when you get the grenade upgrade. The anti-air Tashanka, decent, I'd say. It's not the greatest unit in the game, but can handle balloons. Pretty good, I'd say. BM-13, very strong for defense. The artillery truck. Also their tanks are solid. Maybe not the best tanks, but very solid good tanks. Also they have the flamethrower tank, obviously. I don't see it a lot in combat. even though it can deal with the militia LMGs quite easily, but it's if you can get one of the flamethrower tanks in your enemy's base, it can really kill a lot of workers really fast. I think that's the greatest use of it, to be honest. East Asia, of course, they have the Partisan upgraded from the militiamen in the East Asia medieval. Not too much to say about the Partisan. I mean, it's a militiaman, so you can't really expect to get too much, but it's 10 food or something, and you get a guy with a shotgun, so it's a cannon fodder. It's not great, it's not bad, but you know, it's a unit and it's free, so anything that's free in war selection is good. So next up is gonna be Turkey. Turkey is probably one of my least played countries, because I don't think it's great. They have a few good units. The sniper is really good. It has good damage, good accuracy, good range, but it does get countered by militia, for example, and a lot of other units. Probably the best thing about Turkey is the mines. The mines are really good. It does help you out a lot. You have the light cannon, which I think used to be better than the howitzer, but because it used to have one less population, but I think they set it back to the same population as the howitzer. So Turkey, I'd say, is up here. Yeah, like I said, I don't play Turkey that much, simply because I think there's better options. They have their mortar that is decent, but it's also like pretty much their only siege ability in IR1. They also don't have any tanks in IR1, which makes them a bit weak compared to others, I think. They have the steam, what's it called, steam embarker instead of the steamboat. And honestly, I prefer the steamboat over the steam embarker. The fact that you can make troops on this ship is quite nice, but then you'd have to make the steam embarker and then make your army on top of it, instead of just do your barracks, make troops, and when you have the steamboat, you just send your army in and it's ready to go. So making your army on the boat itself is interesting, but I don't necessarily think it's better than just... I think the regular steamboat is just better. They do have their artillery tower. The artillery tower is very unique. It's very different. It's pretty good, actually, pretty good, but it's definitely not up here. I'd say it's still very strong. Alright, so last but definitely not least is gonna be Iran, Persia. I do believe it belongs here, solo carry. I think Iran is one of the strongest countries. It has some real strong artillery, it has great siege, it has a lot of stuff. I'd say the only problem with Iran is it's very IR2 dependent. You really need to get to IR2 to unlock a lot of stuff like the Gathra, the Atash, and the Eye of Semerg, the balloon. I don't think you have the tractor either until IR2, which is kind of rough. But you do have the Guardians of Sands in IR1, which is very strong versus infantry. Very mobile and fast, so you can use it to kill workers too. And this Thunder of Sands, I think it's decent, but it does require a lot of micro. But again, Iran definitely up there. Has some really strong units. Gets way stronger in IR2, especially with the Gathra, and you get the Immortal as well. I forgot about that. The Div Destroyer, barely see that ever. Um, but yeah, I run definitely up there. And the attache that you can use for base defense or push up workers and use them to destroy the enemy base. Either works. But yeah, definitely up there. One of the strongest countries. So that's gonna be it. That's gonna be my tier list. I'm quite happy how it turned out. And again, if you feel like I made some huge mistakes, please leave a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe to be part of the giveaway. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.